Diplomacy failed. Now every species fears what comes next from Earth, reaches its pinnacle as Commander Aliyah Kestrel broadcasts across quantum boundaries, revealing Earth's defensive phase shift technology, while Admiral Thane's warships prepare to fire. With multiversal collapse imminent, her desperate truth-telling gambit forces both civilizations to choose between mutual destruction or an unprecedented peace built on respect rather than domination. The panoramic council chamber of the Galactic Confederation hummed with ceremonial calm. Suspended in orbit above the capital world, the vast circular hall housed representatives from over 200 species across 12 galactic sectors. Holographic displays shimmered with star charts, while translucent screens floated between delegation pods, displaying diplomatic proceedings in dozens of languages. Commander Aliyah Kestrel stood at the central podium, her dark blue uniform bearing the silver insignia of the diplomatic corps. As the decorated envoy to emerging species, she had faced difficult moments before, but nothing like this. The weight of her next words would ripple across thousands of worlds. "Esteemed delegates of the Confederation," she began, her voice steady despite the tension tightening her shoulders. "I regret to inform this august body that the Sol system authorities have refused our final invitation to join the galactic community." A wave of murmurs swept through the chamber. Some delegates chittered in their native tongues. Others remained ominously silent. High Counselor Varys, a tall, gaunt figure with silvery skin that caught the light like polished metal, rose from his elevated seat. His species, the Tarn, had been among the founding members of the Confederation millennia ago. "Commander Kestrel," he said, his voice carrying the distinctive harmonic resonance of his kind, "are we to understand that these humans have rejected the generosity of our welcome for the third time?" Aliyah kept her expression neutral. "That is correct, High Counselor." "Unacceptable!" Admiral Saro Thane shouted from the military wing of the chamber. The stocky admiral slammed a four-fingered hand against his console. "First, they develop warp technology without proper oversight. Then, they expand to 17 systems without submitting colonization plans. And now this? The arrogance is unprecedented." Scientist Counselor Miral, whose species resembled a collection of crystalline structures suspended in a self-contained atmosphere, rotated slightly, their way of expressing consideration. "Perhaps we should examine why they've declined. Has there been sufficient cultural exchange? Have we addressed their concerns about sovereignty?" Aliyah felt a flush of gratitude toward Miral. At least someone was asking the right questions. "Intelligence reports suggest," she continued carefully, "that Earth authorities are concerned about the stipulations in Articles 7 through 12 of the Confederation Charter, particularly regarding technology transfer and military integration." What she didn't say, what she couldn't say in this forum, was that her sources had whispered of something called Operation Iron Quill. The details were sketchy, but it apparently involved physics that even the Confederation's greatest minds had barely theorized. Something about manipulating the fabric of reality itself. High Counselor Varys made a dismissive gesture with his elongated fingers. "All species must share their advancements for the greater good. This has been our way since the Great Pact. The humans behave like insolent barbarians, hoarding what should benefit all." Aliyah knew the history. In 2404, humanity had accidentally discovered warp drive while experimenting with quantum mechanics. The breakthrough had triggered automatic detection systems throughout nearby space, and within months, Confederation observers had made first contact. For 70 years since then, the relationship had been increasingly strained. The Confederation had expected humans to gratefully accept their elevated status and the guidance of elder races. Instead, humanity had asked uncomfortable questions about past Confederation interventions on Earth, questions about ancient genetic tampering, about mysterious abductions, about archaeological evidence suggesting the Confederation had been monitoring Earth for millennia without revealing themselves. "High Counselor," Aaliyah said, "the human delegates have expressed willingness to establish trade relations and cultural exchanges. They simply wish to maintain their independence and—" "Independence is an illusion," Varys interrupted. "The galaxy functions through interdependence. Species that cannot accept this fundamental truth must be guided toward enlightenment." The implicit threat hung in the air. Aaliyah had seen such guidance before: economic blockades, technology embargoes, and in extreme cases, military pacification. Admiral Thane leaned forward. "My fleet stands ready to establish a perimeter around their home system. A demonstration of our resolve might encourage more cooperative behavior." Aaliyah opened her mouth to object when a junior communications officer burst into the chamber. A breach of protocol so severe that the entire assembly fell silent. "Forgive the interruption," the young officer said, his voice trembling. "We've lost contact with our monitoring stations near Earth." "Explain," Varys demanded. It's not just communications failure, sir. The entire orbital array has vanished. 3 patrol frigates as well. No debris, no distress signals. They're simply gone." The chamber erupted in chaos. Admiral Thane was immediately on his feet. "This is an act of war. I knew these primitives couldn't be trusted." "We don't know what happened," Aaliyah protested, raising her voice over the din. "It could be a natural phenomenon, a technical malfunction. Or it could be evidence of this rumored Iron Quill project," Varys said, his silver eyes fixed on Aaliyah. "Did you know of this, Commander? Has your sympathy for these humans compromised your loyalty to the Confederation?" Aaliyah felt cold dread pool in her stomach. Yes. She had heard whispers about Iron Quill, but nothing concrete enough to report officially. And now this. "I move for immediate action," Admiral Thane declared. "A full battle group to secure the perimeter of Sol system, with authorization for zero-sum justice, if they resist." "Zero-sum justice would obliterate their homeworld," Scientist Counselor Miral objected, their crystalline form pulsing with agitation. "We must investigate first. If they've developed technology capable of making our ships vanish without trace, a military confrontation could be catastrophic." Varys raised a hand for silence. "We will vote. The options before the Council are clear: immediate military response, or investigation with the threat of force to follow." Aaliyah watched in mounting horror as the votes were tallied. The militant factions held sway today, with many neutral species too afraid to oppose them. "It is decided," Varys announced. "The Fifth Fleet will establish a blockade of Earth system. The humans have 24 standard hours to stand down and explain the disappearance of our assets. If they fail to comply satisfactorily, Admiral Thane has authorization to employ necessary force." Aaliyah stood frozen at the podium, watching as her years of diplomatic work crumbled before her. She knew humanity well enough to know they wouldn't respond well to threats. And if they truly had developed some reality-warping technology, the Confederation had just lit the fuse on an interstellar conflict unlike any in galactic history. The Grand Concourse of Fleet Command buzzed with activity as Admiral Sero Thane strode purposefully toward the operations center. Officers and technicians scrambled out of his way, their expressions tense. The Fifth Fleet, 47 capital ships and over 200 support vessels, was being mobilized on an emergency timetable. "Status report," Thane barked as he entered the command hub. Fleet Commander Jorva, a reptilian skrell with iridescent scales, straightened to attention. 39 vessels already underway, Admiral. The remaining ships will break orbit within the hour. All battle groups are on war footing. Thane nodded approvingly. "And the special weapons platforms?" "Armed and integrated with the fleet, sir. Though I must note that Protocol Officer Ennis has registered a formal objection to their deployment, without further Council authorization." Thane scowled. "The Diplomatic Corps should stick to writing strongly worded messages. We have our orders." The Admiral moved to the central holographic display, which showed the fleet's formation taking shape against the backdrop of local space. He expanded the view with a gesture, revealing their destination, the Sol system, home of the troublesome humans. "Remind all captains," he said, "that we are dealing with an unpredictable species that has already demonstrated hostile intent by removing our observation posts. Maximum shield configurations at all times, and weapons hot once we cross the perimeter." As the command staff acknowledged his orders, the doors slid open again. Commander Aaliyah Kestrel entered, still wearing her formal diplomatic uniform. Her presence was unexpected, and Thane's scowl deepened. "Commander Kestrel, this is a military operation. Your presence is neither required nor welcome." Aaliyah stood her ground. "The Council has appointed me as diplomatic liaison for this mission. We're still technically in a negotiation phase." "Admiral." "Negotiation phase," Thane repeated with a harsh laugh. "3 ships and a monitoring station disappeared without a trace. And you think we're still at the talking stage?" "We don't know what happened," Aaliyah insisted. "That's why I've brought the latest intelligence reports for your review." She approached the command table and activated her secure data link. New information flowed into the holographic display. Intercepted communications, energy readings from the Sol system, and analysis from Confederation scientists. "These readings were captured just before we lost contact with the monitoring station," she explained, highlighting a section of data. "Look at these quantum fluctuations. They're consistent with theoretical models of space-time manipulation, not weapons fire." Thane frowned as he studied the readings. "What are you suggesting?" "That Operation Iron Quill may not be a weapon in the traditional sense. Our scientists believe the humans might have developed a way to alter local space-time properties, to phase shift matter rather than destroy it." "Phase shifting? That's theoretical nonsense," Thane dismissed, though his eyes betrayed uncertainty. Fleet Commander Jorva moved closer to examine the data. "With respect, Admiral, these readings do match the projections from Dr. Krab's papers on dimensional variance. If the humans have somehow weaponized this principle, all the more reason to deploy overwhelming force," Thane insisted. "If they can remove our ships from reality, we need to strike decisively before they can use such technology on a larger scale." Aaliyah shook her head. "Or it's all the more reason for caution. If we attack a species with this capability, we might trigger a response that could rewrite local space-time throughout this sector. The consequences would be unpredictable and potentially catastrophic." Their argument was interrupted by an urgent alert from the long-range sensor array. Commander Jorva quickly brought up the new data. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual activity in the Sol system. Thousands, no, tens of thousands of small objects launching from Earth and its colonies." The holographic display zoomed in, showing clouds of tiny capsules spreading outward from human-controlled worlds and stations. "Are they weapons?" Thane demanded. "Unknown, sir. They're too small for our sensors to analyze in detail at this range, but they appear to be self-propelled capsules, each approximately 2 meters in length. Their trajectories suggest they're dispersing in all directions, moving at just under light speed." Aaliyah felt her heart sink. "They're evacuating, or more likely, ensuring their survival by spreading their technology, and perhaps their people as widely as possible." "Explain," Thane ordered. "Each pod probably contains a volunteer and blueprints for local phase shifter devices," Aaliyah theorized, drawing on her knowledge of human psychology and behavior patterns. "If they believe the Confederation poses an existential threat, they'd want to ensure their knowledge survives, even if Earth doesn't." Thane's expression darkened. "So they're preparing for war?" "They're preparing for survival," Aaliyah countered. "There's a difference." The Admiral turned away, issuing rapid orders to accelerate the fleet's deployment. Aaliyah stood by the display, watching the swarm of human capsules expanding outward into the galaxy. The situation was deteriorating faster than she had feared. Back in her temporary quarters aboard the flagship, Aaliyah paced restlessly. The fleet would reach the Sol system perimeter within hours, and she had failed to convince Admiral Thane to exercise caution. Now she faced an impossible choice: uphold Confederation doctrine and potentially witness the destruction of an entire civilization, or warn humanity to stand down and betray her oath of service. Her private communication terminal chimed with an incoming message, priority encoded from Scientist Counselor Morale. "Commander Kestrel." Morale's crystalline form shimmered in the holographic projection. "I've been reviewing the data you forwarded to the Science Council. The implications are concerning. That's putting it mildly, Counselor," Aaliyah replied. "The fleet is prepared to open fire on a species that may be able to alter the fabric of reality." "Worse than that," Morale said, their voice resonating with harmonics that indicated extreme distress in their species. "The Council is fragmenting. Varys has consolidated support among the elder races, pushing for immediate punitive action against Earth. He's characterizing this as a test case for how the Confederation handles technological insurrection. And the opposition? Growing, but not quickly enough. Many species fear human technology, but they fear Varys's faction more. I've managed to rally moderate support, but we need time." Aaliyah made her decision then. "I'm going to request permission to make one final diplomatic approach. A direct meeting with Earth's leaders before the fleet takes any action." "Thane will never approve that." "He might, if I convince him it's an intelligence-gathering opportunity. And if he refuses, then I'll know the Confederation no longer stands for the principles it claims to uphold." After ending the transmission, Aaliyah composed a formal request to Admiral Thane, copying the Council leadership. She knew it was a long shot, but she had to try, not just for humanity's sake, but for the soul of the Confederation itself. To her surprise, the request was approved just as the fleet prepared to make its final approach to the Sol system. Not by Thane, but by a direct order from Counselor Morale, who had secured enough votes to mandate one last diplomatic effort. As Aaliyah boarded the small diplomatic shuttle that would take her ahead of the fleet, she glanced back at the massive Confederation warships assembled behind her. They represented the accumulated military might of 1,000 worlds, ready to unleash destruction on a scale not seen in generations. She could only hope that whatever waited for her in the Sol system would be open to reason, because she was quite possibly the last chance for peace. The diplomatic shuttle emerged from hyperspace at the coordinates where Earth should have been. Instead, Aaliyah found herself staring at empty space. Where a blue-green planet had once orbited a yellow star, there was nothing. No debris, no energy signatures, nothing to suggest Earth had ever existed. "Sensors, full spectrum scan," she ordered the shuttle's AI. "Where is it?" "No planetary body detected at these coordinates," the AI responded. "However, I am registering unusual quantum fluctuations throughout local space." Before Aaliyah could process this information, a communication request pinged on her console, originating from seemingly nowhere. "This is the Earth vessel, Aurora's Dawn," came a human voice. "Confederation shuttle, please identify yourself and state your intentions." Aaliyah hesitated. "This is Commander Aaliyah Kestrel, diplomatic envoy of the Galactic Confederation. I request parley under Article 17 of the Contact Protocols." There was a pause. Then, "Acknowledged. Commander Kestrel, transmitting docking coordinates now. Please follow the quantum beacon precisely. Standard navigation will not function correctly within the phase boundary." Her shuttle's sensors suddenly detected a massive vessel materializing, seemingly out of nowhere. A sleek ship, nearly a kilometer in length, with graceful curves that belied its obvious military capabilities. As Aaliyah's shuttle approached, she realized what she was seeing. Earth hadn't been destroyed. It had been shifted out of phase with normal spacetime, along with its moon, orbital installations, and defensive fleet. They existed in the same location but occupied a different quantum state. rendering them effectively invisible to standard sensors. The docking procedure was disorienting. As her shuttle crossed some invisible threshold, reality itself seemed to shimmer and distort around her. For a heart-stopping moment, she felt as though she was everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Then, with a subtle shift, normal perception returned, except now she could see Earth floating serenely in space, exactly where it should have been. A reception party awaited her in the docking bay of the Aurora's Dawn. 4 humans in what appeared to be military dress uniforms, and 1 in civilian attire. Commander Kestrel, the civilian, stepped forward, extending a hand in the human greeting gesture. I'm Dr. Camille Reyes, Chief Physicist of the Earth Defense Coalition. Welcome to Phase-Shifted Space. Aaliyah accepted the handshake, noting the woman's firm grip and direct gaze. Dr. Reyes, I must admit, I've never experienced anything quite like this transition. Few have, Reyes replied with a tight smile. The quantum boundary layer takes some getting used to. Please, follow me. We have much to discuss, and I understand your fleet is not far behind. They proceeded through corridors that seemed perfectly normal, despite the knowledge that they existed in an altered state of reality. Crew members nodded respectfully as they passed, though Aaliyah noted the tension in their expressions. These people were preparing for war. In a conference room with a stunning view of the phase-shifted Earth, Dr. Reyes gestured for Aaliyah to take a seat at a circular table. Let me be direct, Commander, Reyes began. We know the Confederation fleet approaches with hostile intent. We know your council has authorized zero-sum justice against us. So I'm curious, why are you here? To prevent a catastrophe, Aaliyah answered honestly. The Confederation doesn't understand what it's facing. They see your technology as a threat, rather than a defensive measure. And what do you see it as? Aaliyah chose her words carefully. An incredible scientific achievement that has potentially serious implications for the stability of space-time, and a clear indication that the Confederation has severely underestimated humanity. Dr. Reyes studied her for a moment, then nodded. Operation Iron Quill was never intended as a weapon. It was designed as a shield, a way to remove Earth from harm's way if the Confederation ever decided we were too troublesome to tolerate. The disappearing monitoring stations? A regrettable necessity. They were calibrated to detect phase shifting and would have triggered an immediate military response. We needed time to complete the transition of all our colonies and outposts. Reyes made a gesture, and a holographic display appeared above the table, showing a small shuttle, identical to one of the missing Confederation patrol vessels, materializing in orbit around Earth. We can reverse the process, Reyes explained. We've kept your ships in a stable phase pocket. They're unharmed, and their crews are unaware that any time has passed. Aaliyah watched in astonishment as the shuttle solidified and resumed its patrol route. You didn't destroy them. Of course not. Contrary to what your council believes, we're not barbarians. We simply refuse to be subjugated. A junior officer entered the conference room, his expression grave. Dr. Reyes, we've received a transmission from the Confederation fleet. They're demanding immediate surrender and phase realignment, or they'll open fire. On what? Reyes asked with a hint of dark humor. They can't see us, much less target us. They're threatening to fire into the space where Earth should be, the officer clarified. Admiral Thane claims their weapons have been modified to affect phase-shifted matter. Aaliyah felt cold dread wash over her. Is that possible? Dr. Reyes's expression grew serious. Theoretically, yes. If they've analyzed the quantum fluctuations properly, they could generate a cascading reaction that would destabilize our phase pocket. The results would be unpredictable. Unpredictable how? In the best case, forced realignment that could tear Earth apart from gravitational shear. In the worst case, a multiversal collapse cascade that could spread beyond this star system. Aaliyah stood abruptly. I need to speak to both sides. Immediately. This has gone far enough. I agree, Reyes said, rising as well. We can provide a quantum-stabilized communication channel that will reach both phases simultaneously. As they moved to the ship's communication center, Reyes added quietly, I should warn you, Commander, taking a public stand against your council's decision could be seen as treason. I'm aware, Aaliyah replied. But some principles transcend loyalty to institutions. The Confederation was founded to prevent exactly this kind of confrontation, not to provoke it. In the communication center, technicians prepared a special broadcasting array. Dr. Reyes explained that it would transmit across the phase boundary, allowing Aaliyah to address both the Confederation fleet and the Earth leadership simultaneously. As the final preparations were made, Aaliyah's personal communicator chimed with an incoming message, the Council's ultimatum, transmitted directly from Admiral Thane. Lower your defenses or face obliteration. This is your final warning. At the same moment, the main view screen activated, showing the Confederation fleet in standard space. Dozens of massive warships had moved into firing position, weapon bays opening like the maws of ancient predators. They're powering weapons, a technician reported tensely. Targeting algorithms are attempting to lock onto phase-shifted signatures. How long until they can fire? Reyes asked. Minutes, maybe less. Their systems are adapting faster than we anticipated. Aaliyah stepped onto the broadcasting platform. I'm ready. Dr. Reyes nodded to the communications officer, and a light indicated the channel was open. This is Commander Aaliyah Kestrel of the Galactic Confederation, she began, her voice steady despite the tension. I am broadcasting to both the Confederation fleet and the leadership of Earth. I speak now, not as a representative of the Council, but as a witness to a truth that both sides must acknowledge. She took a deep breath, knowing that her next words would forever alter her life and potentially the fate of multiple civilizations. The people of Earth have not attacked the Confederation. They have developed phase-shifting technology as a defensive measure, a way to remove themselves from conflict rather than engage in it. The monitoring stations and patrol vessels that disappeared have not been destroyed. They have been safely preserved and can be returned unharmed. On the view screen, she could see activity on the bridge of the flagship. Admiral Thane was gesturing angrily, likely ordering her transmission cut off. But Earth's quantum-stabilized signal bypassed standard communication protocols. Admiral Thane, the weapons you are preparing to fire risk not just the destruction of Earth, but a cascading collapse that could spread throughout this sector of space. This is not speculation. It is verified science based on the same principles your own researchers have documented. She turned slightly, addressing the Earth leadership now. And to the people of Earth, continued isolation through phase shifting is not a permanent solution. The technology you've developed comes with risks that even you may not fully comprehend. Both sides stand at the precipice of a disaster that will consume everyone, regardless of politics or principles. On the view screen, she could see Admiral Thane shouting orders. Several ships had altered their positions, breaking the firing formation. I propose an immediate cessation of hostilities, Aaliyah continued. Earth will demonstrate its phase restoration capabilities by returning the monitoring stations and patrol vessels. The Confederation will withdraw its fleet to a respectful distance and revoke the authorization for military action. And both sides will commit to genuine diplomatic engagement based on mutual respect rather than coercion. She paused, then concluded, The choice before us is simple. We can destroy ourselves through fear and pride, or we can forge a new understanding based on the recognition that true power lies in restraint, not domination. I await your responses. The transmission ended, and the conference room fell silent. On the view screen, the Confederation ships remained in position, but their weapon bays had stopped their targeting sequence. What happens now? Dr. Reyes asked quietly. Now, Aaliyah replied, we find out what both sides truly value, power or survival. The silence stretched for what felt like hours but was, in reality, mere minutes. Then, the communication system chimed with incoming transmissions, nearly simultaneously from both the Confederation Council and Earth's Defense Coalition. The Council's message appeared first. High Counselor Varys's gaunt face filling the screen, his silver skin reflecting light in patterns that indicated extreme agitation among his species. "Commander Kestrel," he began, his harmonic voice tight with controlled fury. "Your unauthorized broadcast and apparent collusion with Earth authorities constitutes high treason against the Confederation. You are hereby stripped of your rank and authority. Admiral Thane has been ordered to take you into custody immediately." Before Aaliyah could respond, the screen split to show Scientist Counselor Miral and representatives from 17 member species. "Begging the Council's pardon." Miral's crystalline form pulsed rapidly. "But I must register a formal objection. Commander Kestrel has provided crucial intelligence that warrants immediate reassessment of our position. I move for an emergency session to evaluate this phase-shifting technology and its implications." "Seconded," came voices from multiple delegates. Varys's expression hardened. "You risk much, Counselor Miral." "With respect, High Counselor," Miral responded. "We all risk everything if Commander Kestrel's assessment is accurate. A multiversal collapse cascade would not distinguish between human and Confederation worlds." A third window opened on the screen. Admiral Thane, his weathered face grim but thoughtful. "High Counselor," he said, "my weapons officers report that targeting systems are experiencing unusual quantum interference. They cannot guarantee precision strikes against phase-shifted targets. Moreover, our Science Division confirms that forced phase realignment could potentially trigger exactly the kind of cascade Commander Kestrel described." Aaliyah felt a flicker of hope. Even the hawkish Admiral was beginning to recognize the danger. "What are you suggesting, Admiral?" Varys demanded. "A tactical reassessment," Thane replied carefully. "The fleet will maintain position but suspend weapons lock while the Council deliberates. If the humans can indeed safely return our missing vessels as Commander Kestrel claims, it would demonstrate both their technical capability and their non-hostile intent." The Earth delegation had been silent during this exchange. But now, Dr. Camille Reyes stepped forward. "To demonstrate our good faith," she said, addressing all parties, "we will immediately begin phase restoration of the Confederation patrol vessels and monitoring stations. Additionally, we are prepared to share our complete records of Confederation activities in the Sol system over the past millennium, including documented evidence of unauthorized genetic experimentation on humans and clandestine resource extraction." High Counselor Varys visibly stiffened at this. But before he could respond, Dr. Reyes continued. "We're not interested in retribution or embarrassment. Counselor, we simply wish to establish honest relations based on mutual respect. The past cannot be changed, but we can choose a different future." On screens throughout the communication center, sensor readings showed the 3 missing Confederation patrol frigates shimmering into existence at the edge of the Sol system, exactly where they had disappeared. Moments later, the monitoring station reappeared as well, all systems functioning normally. "Phase restoration complete," a technician reported. "All Confederation assets have been returned intact. Their crews are reporting confusion, but no injuries or damage." Admiral Thane's expression shifted subtly, professional respect replacing suspicion. "Confirmed. Our vessels report all systems nominal and crews unharmed. They experienced no subjective time passage during the phase shift." Aaliyah saw her opportunity and seized it. "High Counselor, members of the Council, Earth has demonstrated both technological sophistication and peaceful intent. I formally request the Council convene to consider a non-aggression pact that would recognize Earth's sovereignty while establishing protocols for safe technological exchange." Counselor Miral's crystalline form brightened. I second the motion and further request that Commander Kestrel's treason charges be suspended, pending full investigation of her claims. The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices as delegates argued vehemently. Varys attempted to restore order, but the momentum had shifted. Too many species now recognized the potential benefits of alliance, rather than confrontation with humanity. Finally, Varys raised his long-fingered hands in reluctant acquiescence. The Council will convene for emergency session. Commander Kestrel, you will present Earth's proposal alongside evidence supporting your actions. Admiral Thane, the fleet will maintain position but stand down from combat alert. And Dr. Reyes, he fixed the human scientist with his silvery gaze. The Confederation expects full transparency regarding this phase-shifting technology. Transparency works both ways. Counselor, Reyes replied evenly. We look forward to equally full disclosure regarding past Confederation activities on Earth. After the transmission ended, the atmosphere in the communication center remained tense, but tinged with cautious optimism. Aaliyah found herself simultaneously exhausted and exhilarated. She had gambled her career, possibly her freedom, but potentially saved billions of lives. Dr. Reyes approached her, offering a steaming cup of what smelled like earth tea. That was impressive diplomacy. Commander. Aaliyah accepted the cup gratefully. It's not over yet. The council remains deeply divided, and Varys won't easily surrender his position. But you've created an opening, Reyes observed. Sometimes that's all that's needed, a moment of possibility where none existed before. Aaliyah sipped the fragrant tea, finding its warmth oddly comforting. What happens now with Earth? Will you maintain the phase shift? Partially, Reyes explained. We're developing a variable phase protocol that would allow us to interact normally with cooperative species while maintaining defensive capabilities against potential threats. It's not ideal, but it's a transitional measure until trust can be established. The universe is rarely ideal, Aaliyah agreed, but it offers endless opportunities for improvement. As they spoke, a junior officer approached with an urgent message. Aaliyah had been summoned to present Earth's case before the full council in 6 hours. The trial of her career, and quite possibly her life, awaited. The Great Hall of the Confederation Council blazed with light and tension. Thousands of delegates from across the galaxy had assembled for what many were already calling the most consequential session in centuries. At the center of the vast chamber stood Commander Aaliyah Kestrel, no longer at the diplomat's podium, but in the accused's circle, a position usually reserved for war criminals and traitors. Opposite her, High Counselor Varys presided from the elevated dais, flanked by the inner council. Scientist Counselor Morale occupied a position to his right, their crystalline form pulsing with subtle lights that suggested intense concentration. This emergency session will now commence, Varys announced, his harmonic voice resonating throughout the hall. Before us stands Commander Aaliyah Kestrel, charged with treason against the Confederation for interfering with lawful military action and colluding with an unaligned species. How do you respond to these charges, Commander? Aaliyah stood straight, her gaze unwavering. I acted in accordance with the founding principles of the Confederation, to preserve peace and prevent catastrophic conflict. The evidence I've presented demonstrates that military action against Earth would have risked not just human lives, but potentially the stability of spacetime itself in this sector. Varys made a dismissive gesture. Convenient theories based on human assertions. This council has not verified such claims. With respect, High Counselor, came a new voice. We have indeed verified them. Admiral Thane stepped forward from the military section, drawing surprised murmurs from the assembly. The Admiral's presence as a witness, especially one apparently supporting Aaliyah, was unexpected. After recovering our patrol vessels and analyzing the sensor data they collected during phase restoration, Our science division confirms that forced phase realignment through weapons fire would have triggered exactly the kind of cascade effect Commander Kestrel described. Thane's gruff voice carried absolute certainty. As the officer responsible for the fleet's safety, I could not, in good conscience, have ordered such an attack once this information became available. Varys's silver eyes narrowed. You exceed your authority, Admiral. I fulfill my duty to the Confederation, Thane countered, which includes providing accurate tactical assessments, regardless of political considerations. Before Varys could respond, Scientist Counselor Morale intervened. The Science Council has reviewed all available data and concurs with Admiral Thane's assessment. Furthermore, we have examined the historical records provided by Earth authorities regarding past Confederation interventions on their planet. A hushed tension fell over the assembly. Morale continued, their voice resonating with the special harmonic that indicated absolute truth-telling among their species. These records are authentic and correspond to classified missions authorized by previous councils. They document genetic manipulation of early humans, resource extraction without consent, and monitoring activities that violated our own first contact protocols. In light of this evidence, Earth's defensive posture and reluctance to join the Confederation appear justified. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Many delegates immediately accessed the secure data packages being distributed, their expressions shifting from disbelief to dismay as they reviewed the evidence. High Counselor Varys struggled to maintain order, but the momentum had clearly shifted. Delegates from dozens of worlds rose to speak, many expressing outrage at the Confederation's historic actions and supporting a reassessment of relations with Earth. In this charged atmosphere, Dr. Camille Reyes was invited to address the council. The human physicist walked calmly to the speaker's position beside Aaliyah, her presence drawing curious stares from species that had never directly encountered a human before. Esteemed representatives, Reyes began, her voice steady and clear. Humanity does not seek conflict with the Galactic Confederation. We developed phase-shifting technology, not as a weapon, but as a shield, a means to protect ourselves from potential threats while we determined whether peaceful coexistence was possible. She activated a small device, and a holographic display appeared above the chamber floor, showing the technical specifications of phase-shifting technology, carefully edited to omit critical security details while demonstrating its fundamental principles. Our proposal is simple: formal recognition of human sovereignty, including a 50-light-year buffer zone around Sol system where Confederation military forces will not enter without explicit invitation. In exchange, we offer a non-aggression pact, scientific collaboration on safe phase alignment research, and a truth and reconciliation process to address historical grievances without seeking punitive measures. Reyes paused, her gaze sweeping the chamber. We extend this offer not from weakness, but from strength, and from the belief that advanced civilizations should be defined not by their capacity for destruction, but by their commitment to understanding. As Reyes returned to her position, Aaliyah noted the thoughtful expressions on many delegates' faces. The tide was turning, not through force or even clever diplomacy, but through the simple power of truth, finally acknowledged. High Counselor Varys, however, remained unmoved. The Council cannot be swayed by sentimental appeals. The fundamental question remains: can we trust a species that has repeatedly rejected our guidance and now possesses technology that could potentially destabilize established order? Perhaps, Counselor, Aaliyah said quietly. The question should be whether humanity can trust us, given our past actions. Trust must be earned, not demanded. Varys fixed her with a cold stare. You forget yourself, Commander. You stand accused of treason. I stand accused of upholding the true spirit of the Confederation, Aaliyah countered, her voice gaining strength. If honesty and peacemaking are treason, then perhaps it is not my loyalties that should be questioned, but the direction in which the Confederation has been led. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Even some of Varys's traditional allies seemed to be reconsidering their positions. Sensing the shifting sentiment, Councillor Miral formally moved for a vote on both the non-aggression pact and Alea's status. Despite Varys's objections, the motion received immediate support from over 100 delegations. The voting process took nearly an hour as representatives consulted with their governments. Alea stood in the accused circle, outwardly calm, despite the knowledge that her future, and potentially the future relationship between humanity and the Confederation, hung in the balance. Finally, the results appeared on the great display screens throughout the chamber. By a margin of 127 to 89, with 42 abstentions, the Council had ratified the non-aggression pact with Earth. By a margin of 142 to 73, with 43 abstentions, the treason charges against Commander Alea Kestrel were dismissed. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds, cheers, protests, and the various expressions of approval or dismay specific to each species. High Councillor Varys sat rigidly in his seat, his silver skin dulled with the sheen of defeat. Councillor Miral floated down from the dais to where Alea and Dr. Reyes stood. This is an unprecedented outcome. The crystalline being observed, their form pulsing with what Alea recognized as cautious optimism. Not since the Great Pact has the Council reversed course so dramatically. It's only a beginning, Alea replied. Centuries of mistrust cannot be erased with a single vote. But they can begin to be healed, Reyes said. Which is why we've proposed the Joint Research Initiative. Working together toward a common scientific goal has historically been an excellent foundation for building understanding between different cultures. Miral's crystalline surfaces reflected light in a pattern indicating agreement. The Council has appointed me to lead the Confederation side of this initiative, and they have a proposition for you, Commander Kestrel. For me? Alea asked, surprised. Yes. Given your unique position, trusted by both Earth and at least half the Confederation, you have been nominated to chair the Joint Phase Council. This body will oversee the implementation of the Non-Aggression Pact and coordinate the research initiative. Alea felt momentarily overwhelmed. After expecting punishment, possibly even execution, this appointment represented not just redemption, but recognition of her principles. I would be honored, she said finally, provided Dr. Reyes and the Earth authorities approve. Reyes smiled. We already have. In fact, it was our suggestion. As the session formally concluded, Alea found herself approached by Admiral Thane. The gruff military officer seemed oddly uncomfortable in the diplomatic setting, but he met her gaze directly. Commander, he said, offering a formal salute. Your actions were unorthodox, but correct. I've served the Confederation for 73 cycles, and I've begun to wonder if we've forgotten what we're meant to be protecting. Not forgotten, Alea replied, returning the salute. Just temporarily misplaced. The principles are still there, Admiral. They just needed someone to speak for them. Thane nodded thoughtfully. The Joint Council will need security protocols. My fleet stands ready to assist, in a supportive capacity only. Of course. Alea recognized the significant concession this represented from the formerly hawkish Admiral. Thank you. I believe there's a place for everyone in this new arrangement, even those who initially stood on opposite sides. As the Admiral departed, Dr. Reyes approached with news that preparations were already underway for the first joint scientific conference. Earth would partially phase restore itself to facilitate the exchange, while maintaining contingency protocols should relations deteriorate. It won't be easy, Reyes admitted. Many humans still deeply distrust the Confederation, and not without reason. And many Confederation species fear humanity's potential. Alea agreed. But fear can be overcome through familiarity and shared purpose. 3 months later, Alea stood in the observation dome of the newly constructed Joint Research Station, which orbited the now fully visible Earth. Below, the blue-green planet turned serenely, while above, the stars glittered against the velvet darkness of space. The station represented something unprecedented, a collaborative project between Earth and the Confederation, designed to study phase alignment technology and develop safety protocols for its use. Scientists from dozens of species worked alongside human researchers, their initial wariness gradually giving way to professional respect and even cautious friendship. Aaliyah had just concluded a meeting of the Joint Phase Council, where representatives had approved the first exchange program for students and cultural ambassadors. It was a small step, but a significant one toward building genuine understanding between once adversarial civilizations. As she gazed out at the starscape, she noticed a peculiar sight: human phase shift capsules and Confederation vessels traveling side by side along newly established trade routes. The capsules no longer carried desperate evacuees, but instead transported diplomats, scientists, and cultural emissaries. "Quite a view, isn't it?" came a familiar voice. Admiral Thane joined her at the viewport, his uniform now bearing the insignia of the Joint Security Force, rather than the Confederation fleet. "It's more than I dared hope for," Aaliyah admitted. "There will be challenges ahead," Thane cautioned. "Varys's faction hasn't surrendered. They've merely retreated to gather strength. And I imagine there are human factions equally opposed to cooperation." "Undoubtedly," Aaliyah agreed. "Peace is never permanently won. It must be continuously chosen and maintained." "A philosophical admiral," came another voice, Dr. Camille Reyes, approaching with data tablets containing the latest research findings. "Who would have imagined such a thing 6 months ago?" Thane actually smiled, a rare expression for him. Who would have imagined any of this? A human planet that can shift between quantum states. A joint research initiative studying technology that theoretically couldn't exist. A confederation forced to confront its own historical mistakes. "Change often comes from unexpected quarters," Aaliyah observed, "and usually only after conventional wisdom has failed spectacularly." Together, the three of them, once representatives of opposing forces, now collaborators in an uncertain but hopeful future, watched as a new group of ships docked with the station. Each vessel carried scientists and diplomats from worlds that had never before engaged directly with humanity. The great galaxy turned, indifferent to the affairs of its inhabitants. But within that vast cosmic dance, something remarkable had occurred, not a victory of one civilization over another, but a mutual recognition that true strength lay not in domination, but in the courage to change, to connect, and to grow beyond the limitations of fear. Diplomacy had failed. Yes, but from that failure had emerged something potentially stronger: respect born of truth, and cooperation founded on mutual interest rather than coercion. Every species might still fear what could come next from Earth. But now that fear was tempered with curiosity, respect, and the dawning recognition that the future belonged not to those who clung to power, but to those brave enough to reimagine it.